Hey there YouTube, this is SJM4306 back with another review. This is going to be a slightly odd one, but just bear with me for a second. So I was contacted by a company on Amazon and they sell like a lot of home appliance stuff, and they asked me if I wanted to review anything in particular. So I looked through and I found they actually sell this vacuum food sealer, and it might sound kind of odd how that would be relevant to electronics, but so my idea is actually I 3D print a lot, so I have filament that is moisture sensitive, and the longer you leave it out, it could degrade. So I was wondering if I could use this in order to seal up small spools of the filament for like kind of long-term storage. I know they sell like containers that you can buy with a vacuum port on the top, and this can actually attach in order to seal like external vacuum containers. So I wanted to try that, number one. Number two, a lot of microchips that I order will actually come with like little desiccant bags, and they'll be sealed in a electrostatic bag. And the purpose of doing that is to prevent the like moisture from damaging the chips. And so I wanted to also see if this can seal those electrostatic bags. So after I open it, if I use one chip, I don't want to just leave the bag open and have, the chips degrade over time. So it'd be really neat if I could reseal that bag. And so it's basically like fresh from the factory, and I can long-term store chips. So anyway, we're going to open this up. This will also obviously be good for sealing food and that kind of stuff, for like freezing and, storing food in your freezer, which I'll definitely probably end up using this for that as well. But I wanted to see how this would work kind of for my hobby, for sealing chips and filament and that kind of stuff. Whether it draws a high enough vacuum to actually pull enough air out, and whether it can seal the type of Mylar bags that microchips come in. So anyway, we'll test all that out in a sec, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of this. And yeah, this is apparently going to be able to seal basically little baggies, containers, all that good stuff. So I guess we can just get right into this. So it does come with a sample bag, and this is, let's see, the actual open area of the bag is probably about 7.5 feet, and I believe this roll is like 75 feet long. So it's a decent amount of the bag, but you probably will want to get a wider bag. I believe this machine can take wider materials, and it does come with some pre-cut bags as well. So at least you have something to play around with if you just buy the machine. We have a simple user manual, and you can see it can do wet dry. It does heat up the bag to actually melt the plastic and seal it. There is a built-in cutter that you can use to easily cut, which makes it easy to use rolls like this. So you can cut to exactly the length that you want. Now, what I am interested in is the accessory port. What kind of attachment does that have? Because it would be really cool to attach, like I said, those Tupperware containers that if I can get one large enough to fit full spools of 3D printer filament, then I can actually evacuate an external container with the filament inside. I've seen some people even have like a pass-through so that you can keep it kind of airtight and it can pass the filament through, so you can print without having to remove it from the container. That'd be awesome. But we'll see about that. I'll run through some random tests with this, see how it works. This was, by the way, this was about, I think it was like 65 bucks. So not super cheap, but not super expensive either. It's sort of middle of the range. There were much more expensive models. You can see bags that we have this weird texture on them. I'm not sure exactly why. But it does say you want to get bags with, wonder why, knuckles they call them, not from Sonic. But it's saying do not seal bags with no lines and no corners. I wonder why. Maybe the bag will rip or something. That's why it has a texture, to make it a little more abrasion resistant. That's interesting. I'll have to try that, because the Mylar ESD bags that I was talking about look like this. They don't have any texture or anything on them, so maybe they won't work. Hopefully they will. We'll give that a try. And yeah, it just has a lot of warnings and stuff. It gets hot, the blade's sharp, etc., etc. And yeah, there we go. It does come with the external accessory, so that's really nice. Something I'm definitely going to have to give a try. And the port for that just goes right into here. And it looks like some kind of keying on there. I wonder, does it like push in? Ah, I see. Yeah, there's some kind of valve in there to create like an airtight seal. And I guess you have to press it. Yeah, there you go. Something like that. So we'll play around with that in a second. It does have some, one thing I don't like about these membrane buttons, there's no like feedback that you clicked it, other than, you know, if there's a buzzer that beeps, or these indicator lights will obviously feedback, but there's no mechanical feedback when you press a button. It doesn't click. I would have liked that a little bit better. These are just kind of the flat membrane buttons that just feels like you're not pushing anything. Feels like you're just pushing on plastic. So I'm not too crazy about that already. But if it works, I guess it's fine. Pretty nice material. This feels like ABS. So yeah, there's some metal here. We have side buttons that I guess lock it. We have that. We have a sheet here. There's a seal bar. Yeah, there's like a gasket, rubber gasket that runs at full length. That's probably where it draws the vacuum in that channel. And there's one on the bottom side as well. There's sort of speed bump rubber thingy. And I'm guessing that's what, yep. On the other side is the heating strip. So it presses up against with this, and that's what actually seals the bag. Here's the cutter. I will say, the plastic molding, yeah, you can see the actual blade itself is under here. And it looks like there is a little bit of plastic to protect you from accidentally touching the blade, so that's good. The molding isn't perfect on this. Maybe feels like there should be some more support. It's probably going to work fine, but the cutting assembly part feels a bit cheap. We'll have to see how it works, but worst case, I guess you could always just use a pair of scissors after you're done. And there is some compliance in like the hinge. Yeah, it goes up and down, so it can accommodate different thickness bags, I'm guessing. And we just have the cord pretty much going into the main part. So the bottom part is, yeah, it's just, yeah, it could be entirely, completely removed. It's just literally kind of for support frame and the cutting assembly, and that's kind of it. It's actually very interesting. They explain about you have to leave at least 3 inches of bag to prevent wrinkles. And yeah, that is one thing. If something has a sharp edge, it could puncture while it's trying to draw the vacuum, so it's something to keep in mind. And never touch the seal bar, because obviously it gets hot. Don't want to burn yourself. Anyway, yeah, I think that's kind of enough. I think I got the gist of how to use this. Okay, so here we are set up on my countertop, and you can see they noted in the manual that you can't vacuum out like perfectly smooth bags, and I think the reason for that is it actually, if two smooth surfaces are you know, kind of bound together tightly, like when you shut the lid on this, it actually can't suck out the air. That's why the bag, I cut out just a small portion of the bag, and I cut a sliver just to see what was going on inside it, and it basically has like these slight ridges, and they're in a kind of crisscross shape so that they keep them separated just enough for the air to actually flow through, even if you press tightly on it. So that's exactly what's happening there. I do want to try it with a kind of semi-smooth bag to see if it'll work, but anyway, we'll see. Anyway, the device itself is easy enough to use from what I've experimented with. I have a baggie here, and I have some walnuts, which if kind of left out or even if frozen tend to get a little stale. So I'm just going to put some of them in here, and we'll seal them off. Just not get the desiccant bag. Now they do note, and this is actually important, you want to leave about maybe 2 to 3 inches of open bag space. And the reason for this is if it's too close to kind of where it seals, it could prevent the sealing from actually working. And worse yet, if the bag actually wrinkles up, there'll be tiny little air holes. Even if it seals it using the thermal strip, there'll be little tiny air holes, and it will slowly, the air will leak in. So it is actually really important to get this as flat as possible. And the evacuation channel is right here. So the minimum space that you need anyway is about this distance here. So that's maybe about 2 inches-ish. So, and you want to place the seam into kind of this open area here. Make sure it's flat. And then the only thing that I'm not such a big fan of on this machine is it takes quite a bit of force to clip. There's these 2 little catches on the side, and you actually need to press down with kind of a significant amount of weight to get that to engage. Now, there are a couple modes on these: normal, gentle. I just leave it on normal, and moist and dry. So if you're doing dry foods like nuts, you would leave it on dry. What moist does, I believe, is it leaves the vacuum on for longer, and so that it'll try to draw out more moisture. Anyway, so if you wanted to use the external evacuation port, you would hit canister, and you use this little nozzle here. And while that does work, you actually have to hold this in place. It doesn't like clip in, and it doesn't like screw in or attach. As soon as you remove it, it just pops back out. I'm not too big of a fan of that. I wish they had something that kind of maybe screwed in and clipped in so that you didn't have to hold that the whole time. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, we have everything set up. Bag is as flat as we can get it, and we'll just hit vacuum seal, and you'll see it. This is quite a bit noisy, so I won't be able to really speak while this is running, but you'll see it start to draw the air out, and you might have to kind of massage it to get the last bit out. And there you go. And you kind of heard it, the pitch kind of changes as it draws the air out. And so now we should be good enough to hit seal. And the seal button lights up, and it's actually heating up the strip right now and melting it. And it keeps the vacuum the whole time. And once that goes out, you're done. If you wanted to preempt it and stop it, you just hit the stop button. Now to open it, click these 2 side buttons. And there we go. Now, like I said, I can see already that there's some wrinkles in the sides here. So what I'm actually going to do is seal it again, maybe once or twice, just to be sure, a little bit away from that, just so that I can be sure that no air is going to get in here. Okay, and it takes about 10 or 15 seconds to seal. You can see I have a couple lines now, and it's actually still warm, so I wouldn't touch it right after it's done sealing. But yeah, that should be good now. You can see there's 3 different areas where it's sealed, and they're kind of intersecting. So yeah, there you go. And this is, everything's pressed right up against each other. I mean, obviously these are nuts. If I bend it, it would actually bend, but it's pretty solid now. It's removed definitely most of the air, probably like 90-some% of it, and it's just pretty much nuts. So yeah, these will keep for much longer, and especially if you want to like freeze stuff, this should help with preventing like freezer burn, which if you just throw in a Ziploc, things tend to get. So yeah, this worked pretty well for that. You can do, anything, meats, vegetables, whatever you wanted, I guess. The bags that it comes with, kind of on these rolls, they're actually pretty useful. So the cutting design, it works. I think a pair of scissors is a little bit easier. I think where this is more useful is when you have this continuous bag roll. If you have it in the back here, you can just pull the bag out to the length that you want, and then just use that to quickly slice. Now it is protected. It does actually have this little piece of plastic, so you can't touch the blade directly. So that is definitely good. But yeah, I think I'll stick to, if I need to cut bags, just stick to using a pair of scissors. Just like that. A bit easier. It doesn't cut as straight, but it's a little less fiddly in my opinion. So yeah, other than that, what I actually wanted to try this on, which might sound odd because this is a food item, is microchips and stuff. I order quite a bit of chips from different manufacturers, and they usually come in these like anti-static boxes, and they're protected electrically. But some of these packages are actually sensitive to moisture, and if you're hand soldering, that's not that big of a deal. If you're reflow soldering or using like hot air, any trapped moisture could mess up, the way that the solder joints form. So that's why they're usually specified to only solder if the humidity is in a certain range. Now these usually come in these, I think they're like Mylar metallized bags, and they come exactly like this. You can see where the chip was originally, where the little box was. And they usually come with a desiccant bag and then a moisture card, which will tell you how much moisture is seeped in. Now I do want to try if I can actually seal this up. So just kind of put this on its side in the middle there. And I want to see if I can vacuum this out. I have no idea what the melting temperature of this bag is, so we'll see if this works or not. And also the other interesting thing is this bag is perfectly smooth inside, so it might not be able to even pull a vacuum. So hopefully, we'll see. So yeah, what it's looking like is this bag didn't actually, it neither vacuumed nor sealed. I'm not sure what type of equipment they used to do this at the factory, because you can see here, it did not melt like at all. You can see kind of the impression of where it tried to melt it, but I'm guessing that the actual melting temperature of this bag is much too high. I'm gonna try that one more time. Yeah, you can see the air's all trapped. Yeah, it like almost seems to have enough energy to, but yeah, this Mylar bag is not going to work for sealing. Let's actually cut one of these. Now the only issue is the box itself. You can't put the chips bare in here because they are still sensitive to electrostatic damage, and this is an insulator. So I'm going to keep it in the protective electrostatic little baggie or box that it comes with. And so, one good thing I like about this machine, you can lift off the lid completely to load it easier. So I'm just going to stick the bag out, yay. And we want to leave a little bit of room there. So just going to feed this through. That should be enough room. So we're just going to move the blade to the side and cut. And there you go. That's a nice clean cut for the roll. And to prep this, you actually have to seal one of the ends first, clearly, because you just opened it. So the sealing strip is right on the edge here, so you only have to put it about here. Get it lined up as much as possible. And then just hit seal. There you go. And just look at the seal, make sure. I would actually advise maybe doing it again. One thing about these bags, because they curl up, they can be a bit of a pain. we'll seal that again just to make sure. So now that's sealed. Put the chips in. This is probably not the way people will actually end up using these, but I just want to see if this will work. So we're going to put the open end of the bag as flat as possible into the evacuation chamber. And so yeah, what I'm actually going to advise is if it curls, because the bag on the roll has a natural tendency to curl, put it facing down. That's going to make it a lot easier to load. Kind of straighten it. And we're going to vacuum it out. And I like that it's one touch. As soon as it reaches a certain level of vacuum, it'll auto seal. I'm going to hit it again. And there we go. It's sealed twice. Should be good enough on both sides. And yeah, you can see, look at that. It actually bowed the container all the way in. And so there's very little air in there. And it's very tight fitting. So I'd expect these chips to last pretty well under these conditions. So the important thing to note is you make sure on both sides of the bag that it's sealed very well, because any little tiny pinhole leak, this will, within like a week or two, it'll start reinflating. And so it kind of defeats the purpose if you don't seal the ends correctly. So just for demonstration, I'm just gonna cut this open. And I can hear the vacuum release just there. And we have my chips all nice and safe now for storage once you vacuum them out. So yeah, it's actually pretty useful. I have to check though how much these, like a roll of this costs, and how much you get on a roll, because that's actually the determining factor, because like I just tested, you cannot use like a regular smooth bag for the vacuum portion. It'll seal just fine if you use like a Ziploc bag, which is kind of odd to think, but it will actually heat seal a Ziploc bag, but it cannot suck the air out because of the inner surface is too smooth. That's why this is not a gimmick. That's why they actually have this zigzag texture on the bag, is to allow the air a channel to get out. So yeah, so depending on how cheap these are, and also if they came a bit wider, I would like that. Now the entire device itself, it looks like it can take about maybe 12 inches, so about a foot wide of a bag. This is only about 2/3 of that. Now if they sold wider bags, I think that would be ultimately more useful. I'm sure they do. But depending on price, that could make or break how useful this machine is. So yeah, like I said, for food, works great. This guy's still sealed. And I'm just going to keep this for the next couple of days, and if it remains sealed, then that'll be end of this video, I guess. If it doesn't, I'll have an update to this video added on the end if any air does actually get into this. But a couple other tests that I ran, it seems to seal pretty well. Using the original bag, you cannot use like these kind of Mylar bags, which I was hoping I'd be able to get away with. So anyway, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for QDH for sending this in. If I had to rate this, I believe the price tag was somewhere around 60 bucks. And just looking at the construction, it does seem a little bit cheap if I'm being honest. In terms of like the latching mechanism isn't as good as I'd like. It does work and it does feel sturdy. Like there's no flex in any of the plastic. So there's definitely that. So I guess it just comes down to how much you're going to use this and how much these bags cost on their own, because we're probably going to run through this I don't know how many feet this is. We're probably going to run through this entire bag pretty quickly. And in order for this machine to be useful, like I said, you can't use regular, random bags. It has to have that special coating on the inside. So depending on how much that costs, that could make or break this machine, in my opinion. But in terms of the functionality, it works. I haven't had any issues. It sucks the air out really well, actually. This is as hard as a brick now. And I like that it's automated. Once it's done sealing, it gets to below a certain pressure, it'll auto seal. and you're pretty much good to go by that point. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this random video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.